Good morning. It's Wednesday and we're halfway through the week. So we're almost finished with this last week of assignments. And so let's go ahead and get started on your spelling. We're going to look at the vocabulary words 6 through 10. Last night you copied the ones 1 through 5, copied those words and definitions 3 times. So today we're going to look at the words sack, self-possessed, solitude, treacherous, and vacillate. So let's look at, I'm going to read some sentences. You look at these definitions, tell me which one I'm talking about, because the definition is actually going to be in the sentence. Dr. Chase's deceptive in one's allegiance to someone or something behavior was not discovered until General Gage's papers were presented in the courtroom. So deceptive in one's allegiance to someone is going to be treacherous, okay? His treacherous behavior. The enemy troops believed that they could rob or plunder a captured city or town, the city, if they could ambush it unexpectedly. What were they trying to do? They were trying to sack the city. And then the sales lady patiently watched Harriet waver between two different courses or opinions, between the blue ribbons and the yellow, between the plain muslin and the figured. So what would she be doing? If she's trying to make a decision, she's vacillating between the two. And then the next one, the child remained being calm and confident of one's own abilities, even though she had become separated from her parents in the crowd. She remained self-possessed. She was calm, okay? And another one, goodness, is this already the last one? Let's see. 1, 2, 9, 6. Yeah, this is the last one. All right. The American poet Emily Dickinson spent her life in a state of being alone or away from other people, isolated from all but a few close friends and relatives. So she spent her life in solitude, All right. Those are your 5 vocabulary words that you're going to be working on today. Copy those words and definitions 3 times. Make sure that you put list 28 at the top of your paper. Now I'd like for you to take out your grammar book and turn to page 269. On page 269, we're going to be looking at these sentences and we're going to be identifying the use of these words. And we're talking about all of the parts of speech that we've studied this year. So let's look at the definition. It says uses in the sentence. Identify each use in the sentence as a subject, a verb, a direct object, an indirect object, a predicate nominative, a predicate adjective, an object of the preposition, and a positive, a direct address, an adjective, an adverb, and they left out 2. So I'd like for you to write in the directions, write conjunction, C-O-N-J for conjunctions, and for prepositions, P-R-E-P, period. So we're going to look at each sentence and then we will decide how these words are used in sentence. So just go a sentence at a time. All right, let's look at the first one. The Rangers looked up and saw the enemy soldiers at the edge of the cliff shooting down at them with machine guns and throwing grenades. So number 1, looked. What were they doing? They were looking. So that's going to be a verb. Number 2, where did they look? Up. So that's describing looked. That's an adverb. Number 3, enemy soldiers. What kind of soldiers? Enemy ones. So that's an adjective. Number 4, at them with machine guns. Okay, that's the object of the preposition. With machine guns is your prepositional phrase, and so guns is the object of your preposition. Number 5, and the American Rangers began to climb. The American Rangers began to climb. What kind of Rangers were they? American. So that's going to be an adjective, okay? They shot rope ladders over the fence of these cliffs and began to pull themselves up. They is going to be the subject of this sentence. It's a preposition, or it's a pronoun, but it's going to be the subject of this sentence. All right. Let's see. Where's number 7? They began to pull themselves up. To pull themselves. They began to pull what? Themselves. Began what? To pull themselves up. So that's used as a direct object there. All right. I want you to do numbers 8 through 28, and I want you to do those by yourself. And then when you finish, I want you to pause this video first, then do the rest of these answers, then unpause the video, and I'll go over the answers with you so you can check and see how well you're doing. So make sure that you pause the video and do numbers 8 through 28. Seriously, y'all, pause the video, do it yourself. All right, let's look at number 8. When one ranger fell, another would take his place. Another would take his place. That's the subject of the sentence. So another is the subject. When one rope was cut, a ranger would grab another and begin his climb again. So number 9 is a conjunction. When one rope was cut. Remember, sometimes they're at the beginning of the sentence. So you could say, a ranger would grab another when one rope was cut and begin his climb again. So it could go in the middle of the sentence as well. All right, look at number 10. A ranger would grab. That's going to be a what? A verb. Number 11, they climbed, shot back, and held their footing. Shot is also going to be a verb. Number 12, soon, one by one. They held their footing soon. They held their footing when? Soon. That's an adverb. Number 13, the rangers pulled themselves. Themselves. They pulled what? Themselves. That's a direct object. And number 14, over the top. Over is a prepositional phrase there. Over the top. And it's an adverb phrase, but over is the preposition. Number 15, they began to seize back the continent of Europe. They began to seize. That's going to be a direct object. What did they begin? To seize. Number 16, of Europe. So Europe is going to be the object of the preposition of. 17, 225 came here. After 2 days of fighting, that's going to be a preposition. After 2 days of fighting is a prepositional phrase. Number 18, only 90 could still bear arms. 90 is the subject there. Number 19, could still. To what extent could they? Still. So that's going to be an adverb. Number 20, these are the boys of Pont de Hoc. That's going to be, these is going to be a subject of the sentence. And Pont de Hoc is the object of the preposition of there. That's a prepositional phrase. All right, these are the men who took the cliffs. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are what? This is going to be the ones who took the cliffs. So it's going to be the subject, okay? The ones who took the cliffs are men. That's the way you would diagram it. Number 23, these are the champions. These is your subject, are is your verb, and it's a linking verb, and champions is renaming these. So that's going to be a predicate nominative. Number 24, these are the champions who helped free a continent. So helped is a verb there. These are the heroes. Again, heroes is a predicate nominative. It's renaming these who helped end a war. Number 26, gentlemen. This is direct address. You're talking to the gentleman. So 26 is direct address. I look at you and I think of the words of Stephen Spender's poem. I think. I is your subject there. And then number 28. Number 28. You are the men who in your lives fought for life and left the vivid air signed with your honor. What is sign describing? It looks like it might be a verb, but it's not. It's describing the air. What kind of air? Signed with your honor. So that's an adjective there. Well, I hope you did well on that. Let's turn the page and let's look at the next exercise. This next exercise is exercise G, and it is recognizing phrases. So let's look at it. It says in the first blank, identify the italicized phrases as a preposition, a participle, a gerund, and infinitive. And in the second blank, identify the use of the phrase as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. Well, sometimes we can actually look at the second part first and decide how it's used, and we can figure out whether it's maybe a gerund or a participle. So let's go back and let's review for a minute. Gerunds end in ing, and they can only be used as nouns, okay? Participles end sometimes in ing, but they have to be describing a noun or a pronoun. They end in ed, d, en, t, and ed. So those are the common endings for participles, and they're only used as adjectives. Now, an infinitive usually has the word to in front of it, and it is used as either a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So if it's an adverb phrase, it's got to be an infinitive phrase, because a gerund or a participial phrase cannot be an adverb phrase. So infinitives can be all three. Gerunds can only be nouns, and participles can only be adjectives. So let's take a look at this. Number one, we're going to do these together because I know these kind of stress y'all out a little bit. So let's do them together. Trusting God, Amy Carmichael told her family and friends that she was going to be a missionary. So let's look. This is trusting God. What is that describing? Anything? Excuse me. Yes, it's describing Amy Carmichael. So trusting God is describing Amy Carmichael. So that's an adjective, and it ends in ing, so it cannot be a gerund. Trusting God has to be a participle. So it's a participle acting as an adjective. All right, look at number two. Amy desired to join the China Inland Mission, but was not able. Okay, to join the China Inland Mission. That should tell you right there. That's an infinitive because it's got that to in front of it. To join the China Inland. That's an infinitive. Well, how's it used? Where's the verb? Desired. Amy desired what? To join the China Inland. That's a direct object, so it's going to be used as a what? A noun phrase. A noun phrase. That's an infinitive used as a noun phrase. All right, look at number three. A year later, she was only 18. She sailed for Japan, where she served for 2 years. For Japan. That's a prepositional phrase, isn't it? Okay, and what is it describing? Where she sailed. So that's going to be a what? An adverb, right. It's a prepositional phrase used as an adverb. All right, look at the next one. After spending a year back in England, Amy again sailed away from her homeland, never to return. Okay, where is it? Spending a year in England. Spending a year in England. Okay, let's find the verb. It's either going to be a gerund or it's going to be a participle. So let's figure out which one it is. Okay, sailed is your verb. Who sailed? Amy sailed. Okay, Amy sailed when? After spending a year back in England. That's describing what? It's describing Amy. It's Amy. Okay, so if it's describing Amy, no, wait a minute. I'm sorry. That's not right. It's not describing Amy. After spending a year in England, Amy again sailed away from her homeland, never to return. Okay, spending a year in England, Amy sailed. Okay, so this is a gerund phrase used as a noun. Spending a year in England, Amy sailed. That's a noun phrase. All right, look at the next one. Number 5. She loved teaching the women and children. She loved teaching the women and children of India about Christ. All right, where's your verb? Loved. She loved what? Teaching women and children. So this is going to be a noun phrase. So teaching has to be a what? Has to be a gerund phrase. Has to be a gerund phrase. All right, number 6. Although she never married, Amy became a mother to hundreds of orphans and unwanted children. Of orphans and unwanted children. is a prepositional phrase, and it's used as what? What kind of mother was she? A mother to orphans and unwanted children. So that's an adjective phrase. Number 7, although Amy went through many trials, she never gave up. Through many trials. Through many trials tells us where she went. So we know it's an adverb phrase. Well, what kind of phrase is it? Prepositional phrase, because through is a preposition and trials is your object. So that's a prepositional phrase used as an adverb. Number 8, Amy Carmichael served 55 years as a missionary to the lost and needy of India. Well, look at how it starts, to the lost and needy. But is that an infinitive or is it a preposition, right? Is it describing anything? To the lost and needy, to the lost and needy. Where did she serve? What kind of missionary was she? To the lost and needy. So it's an adjective phrase, and it is just a prepositional phrase. To the lost and needy is a prepositional phrase. So that one, that is exercise G. All right, let's look at one more, recognizing clauses. Exercise H. We're going to review exercise H. Recognizing clauses. Identify each italicized clause as a noun, an adjective, or an adverb. So we're going to just look and see how does it work in this sentence. Number 1, there are many words and phrases in the English language that are misused and misspoken. Okay, so let's look. What's your verb? Are. Okay, what are? Words and phrases are. Okay. And so what does that are used and misspoken? Is that describing anything? Yes, it's describing the words and phrases. So that's an adjective phrase. All right, look at number 2. If you leave a legacy behind, make sure it is a famous one, not an infamous one. All right, so let's look. Where's your verb? Make. Okay, so let's see. If you leave a legacy behind, that's telling what? It's describing make, okay? When should you make something? If you leave a legacy behind. So that's a what? An adverb phrase because it describes the verb. Number 3, remember that you want an extra shot of espresso, not espresso in your coffee. All right, so what's the verb here? Remember. What would be the subject? Understood you. You remember what? That you want an extra shot of espresso, not espresso. So that's a direct object, so it's used as a noun. Good. All right, and number 4, unless you are really talking about a lizard, you want to start right from the get-go, not the get-go. Play on words, isn't it? All right, so let's look. Unless you are really talking about a lizard, okay? What's it describing? Well, let's look at the verb, want. When would you want? Unless you're really talking about a lizard. Okay, so that's going to be an adverb phrase. Number 5, the criminal will be hanged if convicted of his crimes, but the picture will be hung over the mantle. Another play on words. If convicted of his crimes describes when this criminal will be hanged. So that makes it a what? An adverb phrase. All right, and then look at the last one. Regardless of what popular belief says, irregardless is not a word and should not be substituted for the word regardless. Okay, so let's look. What popular belief says? What popular belief says is, so that's going to be a noun phrase. That's your subject of the sentence. All right, that's all we're going to do today in our grammar book. But I want you to take out your Of Places book now and turn to page 397. Page 397. Yesterday you read the poem about the death of Stonewall Jackson, and we learned about that when we studied history. In the Battle of Chancellorsville is when he got shot. So you did that yesterday, and you did Think It Through, I believe on page, yes, on page 396. And so today we're going to read a couple more poems. We're going to read The Right Kind of People on page 397. We're going to read The Gift Outright, and we're going to read Home. So let's look at the right kind of people. Sometimes the greatest indication of a person is kind of what he thinks about others. So this poem, The Right Kind of People, tells the story about two different people on separate journeys who come to the same unfamiliar city, and both ask questions, and when they ask the questions, they are asked to make statements about the people where they come from. So it kind of gives you an idea of their outlooks and opinions on life. So let's read this story, this poem, The Right Kind of People. Gone is the city, gone the day, yet still the story and meaning stay. Once where a prophet in the palm shade bask, a traveler chanced at noon to rest his mules. What sort of people may they be, he asked, in this proud city on the plains o'erspread? Well, friend, what sort of people whence you came? What sort? The packman scowled. Why, knaves and fools. You'll find the people here the same, the wise men said. Another stranger in the dusk drew near, and pausing cried, what sort of people here in your bright city where yon towers arise? Well, friend, what sort of people whence you came? What sort? The pilgrim smiled and lifted his head. Good, true, and wise. You'll find the people here the same, the wise man said. So what do you think the wise man was actually saying? Because he just said there's really bad people here, there's really good people here. So what do you think he was saying? It was like, whatever your outlook is, whatever your belief is, if you think the people were bad where you came from, you're going to find bad people here. That's what you're going to be looking for. If you think the people where you came from were good, you're going to find good people here. So what he's basically telling us is that there's all kinds of people wherever you go. There's always going to be good people and there's going to be bad people. And it just depends on what your frame of mind is. So that's what this poem is talking about. So let's look at the next one, The Gift Outright. This is on page 398. This is by Robert Frost, and this is kind of a patriotic poem. Let's look at what it says. In this patriotic poem, Robert Frost portrays the history of the United States as well as the thoughts and feelings of the first Americans. He expresses the love and devotion that the people had for America even before calling it home. So let's look at this one. The land was ours before we were the land's. She was our land more than 100 years before we were her people. She was ours in Massachusetts, in Virginia. But we were England's, still colonials, possessing what we still were unpossessed by, possessing by what we now no more possessed. Something we were withholding made us weak until we found out that it was ourselves we were withholding from our land of living, and forthwith found salvation in surrender. Such as we were, we gave ourselves outright, the deed of gift, as many deeds of war, to the land vaguely realizing westward, but still unstoried, artless, unenhanced. Such as she was, such as she would become. All right, so let's kind of just look at this, the questions down here. What country does Robert Frost claim possessed us even before we no longer possessed it? That was England. England said we belong to them. All right, number 2, to Robert Frost, what does it mean to possess the land, and what does it mean to be possessed by a land? Well, he means that to inhabit it and to explore it and to colonize it, it means to pledge allegiance to it, to be a citizen of it, to have legal obligations, and to be a member of that established country. Number 3, what does the narrative refer to in saying that we were made weak because they were withholding something? And what exactly were they withholding? Well, they were withholding from giving themselves to the country through fighting the war for freedom from England. And the last one, how do the last 2 lines suggest how future exploration in America will go? Well, let's look at these lines. But still unsorted, artless, unenhanced, such as she was, such as she would become. Well, it says that it's going to lead to new discoveries and landmarks, and the country will forever be full of new territories that are waiting to be discovered. All right, well, that brings us to the poem on page 399 and 400. Now, this is a little bit different. This is talking about home. And as I read this one and you read along with me, I want you to kind of think about your home and think about whether you agree with some of these things. You're going to do the think it through on the next page. So let's read this poem together. And it has kind of a country feel to it. You'll see some of the words are a little bit different than the way that some of us speak. So let's look at what it says in the beige rectangle. Through a heavy dialect, Edler Guest challenges the reader to consider which is more fundamental to a home, objects or experiences. So what's more important about your home, the things that are in it or the things that happen there? So let's look at this. It takes a heap of loving in a house to make it home, a heap of sun and shatter, and you sometimes have to roam before you really appreciate the things you left behind and hunger for them somehow with them all is on your mind. It don't make any difference how rich you get to be, how much your chairs and tables cost, how great your luxury. It ain't home to you, though it be a place of a king, until somehow your soul is sort of wrapped around everything. Home ain't a place that gold can buy or get up in a minute. Afore it's home, there's got to be a heap of living in it. Within the walls, there's got to be some babes born, and then right there, you've got to bring them up to women good and men. And gradually, as time goes on, you find you wouldn't part with anything they ever used. They've grown into your heart. The old high chairs, the playthings too, the little shoes they wore, you hoard. And if you could, you'd keep the thumb marks on the door. You got to weep and to make it home. You got to sit and sigh and watch beside a loved one's bed and know that death is nigh. And in the stillness of the night to see death's angel come and close the eyes of her that smiled and leave her sweet voice dumb. For these are scenes that grip the heart, and when your tears are dried, you find the home is dearer than it was and sanctified. And tugging at you always are the pleasant memories of her that was and is no more. You can't escape from these. You got to sing and dance for years. You got to romp and play and learn to love the things you have by using them each day. Even the roses round the porch must blossom year by year, for they come a part of you, suggesting someone dear who used to love them long ago and trained them just to run the way they do so as they would get the early morning sun. You've got to love each brick and stone from cellar up to dome. It takes a heap of living in a house to make it home. All right, and so today you're going to do the Think It Through questions on page 400. There's only 4 of them. And that's all that we have today for English, except for you to listen to the next video where I'm going to read a couple more chapters of Number the Stars. And this is where the book starts getting really exciting, when the characters in the book start having to deal with the soldiers and trying to see what they can do to help some of the Jewish people escape being captured by the soldiers. So I hope you have a great Wednesday, and I will be back tomorrow. Watch the next video on Number the Stars.